and so much more. These are the craziest super police chases ever caught on.
What's cracking YouTube? It's your boy Kano3, and this is Car Chases, Chaos, and Capers, a breakdown of the world's most exciting police pursuits, the drama unfolding in the chaos across the world, and the most well-planned, elaborate capers ever. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Blue Cheese Entertainment. You know how we do.
From the swampy backwoods to the beautiful beaches and cocaine-filled cities of Florida, there exists a secretive and controversial criminal organization with bigger hopes and aspirations than your typical gang. They call themselves the Unforgiven, a reference to their outsider status from mainstream society, and they wear it with pride. This group has done more than most all-white gangs to earn its white supremacist label. And within Florida prisons, it is a dominant force, rivaled only by the Universal Aryan Brotherhood. Over the years, the Unforgiven has been linked to beatdowns, extortion, intimidation, and even murders throughout this marshland paradise. And it has also even attempted to gain a foothold in local politics and government. This presentation is based on
And that's one thing right there I just want to stop and let y'all take note of. That's one thing that all these other groups outside of like the Bloods, the Crips, basically the black gangs, when you look at the white gangs, when you look at the Mexican gangs, it's one thing that they both have in common. They will attempt and have, and in my belief, they currently have a foothold and a stronghold in politics. Like literally, like probably cabinet members, probably Senate members, probably councilmen. Who knows? But I do know that those specific groups, you know, they get in. They're very smart. They're very intelligent. They're very planned. They've been with the infiltration. That's one thing that also separates the Bloods and the Crips and the regular black gangs from these more organized, more composed gangs. These gangs will infiltrate the government. You know what I'm saying? Bloods and Crips, we're more restrained to blocks and neighborhoods. These guys will go to the highest lengths to ensure the success of their groups. You know, they're very methodical. They're very slick.
View of thousands of documents, photos, videos, articles from credible news sources, and the words of Unforgiven members themselves, including a president who claims people have the wrong idea about this group that embraces Nazi symbolism, allegedly tried to take over a Florida town, and which goes by the creed, Unforgiven forever, forever unforgiven. On the night of June 23rd, 2003, in the small city of Longwood, Florida, two men with totally opposite life trajectories cross paths with tragic consequences. For Tony Francis, it was just another night of work behind the counter of a local quick corner, where he spent as much as 70 hours each week greeting customers and dishing out snacks. But for 28-year-old Tyndall Jason Williams, it was just a night of drug-fueled desperation that had led him there with a borrowed sawed-off shotgun, determined to commit a brazen robbery to pay off a drug debt to his own girlfriend. Williams walked into the store, raised the gun at Francis, and shot him squarely in the chest from a few feet away without giving him any time to react. As the clerk lay dying, Williams tried and failed to locate a stash of cash, only to leave completely empty-handed and to dispose of the weapon in Lake Monroe. Earlier in the night, Williams had expressed a specific desire to rob a Middle Eastern man, using a racist epithet in the process. In the end, all he'd managed to do was kill an innocent person and get himself a life case. Surveillance video of the crime was broadcast.
And something, that's simple. That's how fast that your life could change right there. This was probably a young man that was troubled, got into using drugs, probably trying to cope with, whatever depression or whatever was weighing on his back, whatever was weighing him down. He decided to do drugs to cope with that. Now he's in a drug debt, they said, to his girlfriend, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? So to pay his girlfriend back for the drug debt that he is in with her, he decides to go up in here, hit a leg. He's already probably, a racist dude. They say he wanted to do something to some Arabs or something like that. So whoever he ran across, he already knew. He probably had frequented this store. This is probably a store that he knows. He probably knows the clerk and everything. He probably come to this store to get his Budweiser. And now he done double back on him like, man, I'm finna get out pool. I'm finna bust him down. Bam. And then he done went up in there and did the thing. That's just how fast, you get caught up on these drugs, you get into a drug debt, you know what I'm saying? Then you want to do desperate things to keep up your habit, or you got to pay back people. And in this case, his girlfriend. It's the weirdest thing I ever heard, but whatever the case may be, that's how fast these decisions happen that change your life. Any decision that I made or that happened with me that I ended up going to prison for or to jail for, it happened in a split second. It was a split second decision. And the regret that you're going to have to handle for the rest of your life because you're going to jail. You know what I'm saying? So pay attention, y'all. This is how fast things can switch up on you.
All over the local news. And for the next 24 hours, Williams and even some of his loved ones fielded calls from concerned friends who easily recognized him. The cops solved the mystery quickly, and even Williams' girlfriend implicated him. Before long, Williams was sentenced to life in prison. As a youth, Williams had joined a so-called gang who called themselves the Sick Boys. But now as a lifer in a place where violence and racial politics rules the day, Williams found a much bigger, more dangerous group to align with. He became a member of the Unforgiven. And in the Sunshine State, this group has emerged as the first choice for white inmates in the Department of Corrections who are seeking to join a gang. With thousands of members.
And this, this is happening in Florida. So to correlate that to California, where I'm from, that would be like getting down with the AB. You understand? But when you get to them high levels of security, which he's going to be at because he just committed an unaliving. So he's going to the highest, the most dangerous, the most secure prison that they have in Florida. The people that's going to be running that is these dudes that he ended up aligning himself under. Same thing in California. You go to prison in California, you're a white dude, and you got a bunch of time to do, and you go to one of them level 4 yards, maximum security, the highest risk inmates that there are, you're going to have to join up. It's period, point blank. It's a survival thing. You don't even have a choice when you get to that level. Once you're thrown in these situations, you will have to join up. It's a survival thing. It's not all, I came in and I'm on this. Nah, which some people are. Don't get me messed up. Some people do come on. They're already on this. They already know what's going on. They're already with these groups. But some people just get thrown into these situations from a split decision that they made. And now you have to make a decision to join a prison gang. And you will join a prison gang, or you will be going to PC or something like that. They will take your pride if you don't join up. That's all there is to it.
To answer a call to arms, the Unforgiven has many commonalities with other Aryan-aligned gangs. But it also presents itself as an empowerment organization that is strictly rooted in white supremacy and explicitly seeks to indoctrinate, spread propaganda, and eliminate, quote, race traitors from their own ranks. As such, they've predictably become a major target of law enforcement, not just in Florida, but Washington, D.C., which continues to throw resources towards building RICO cases against them. And while the Unforgiven is well known in the South, it has recently gained nationwide notoriety thanks to its tangential connection to a predatory murderer who gained a cult-like following over his good looks and haunting tattoos. There is a wide spectrum of white supremacist gangs and organizations in the United States, from extremist political groups like the Order to gangs like the original Aryan Brotherhood, which is far less ideological and more centered on drug trafficking and prison control. The Unforgiven borrows from both extremes, but is firmly rooted in a belief that white people face an existential threat from normal mainstream society, and therefore need to form a united front to fight back. From its foundation in the late 1980s, the Unforgiven has presented itself as the Fourth Reich, an extension of the belief system institutionalized in Nazi Germany. But the Unforgiven exists a lot like typical prison gangs as well, relying on violence, extortion, contraband trafficking, and unity within its own ranks to survive behind bars. The Unforgiven's constitution states that inmates in the Florida state prison system were, quote, a minority in the extreme, and, quote, exploited, victimized, and preyed upon by those of other races. Their solution was simple.
And as we always know, we all know this. That's why most of these gangs are formed. You know, violence from another gang, violence from another organization that's more organized and more controlling. And of course, you know, the people that's in charge, they're going to victimize the people that's under them. That's why most of these things start. But once, you know, what's the saying? Power corrupts absolutely, or absolute power corrupts something like that. You know what I'm talking about. I'll get the quote right next time for y'all. But that's just off the top, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I mean. Once you start getting that power, and once you start developing control over other people, it's addictive. It's crazy when you could tell someone to go do something. No one can, you know, it will corrupt you.
Form a paramilitary organization in prison, creating a group that has a rigid leadership hierarchy, yet also asserts that all members should be considered equal. How people end up in the Unforgiven varies by the individual, but we were able to acquire a love letter to a woman that was written by one member named Brandon Welch, aka Scumbag, in which he included an autobiography that helped explain his personal journey to joining this prison gang. He wrote, quote, I had a really good childhood. Dad was a major in the Marines. Mom owned a catering biz. Shit fell apart for me when my mom died when I was in college, 06. From there, shit went down the drain.
Nigga was a mighty
here
duck.
I am now. The longer version was that Welch developed a painkiller addiction after studying business in college, and his life totally fell apart. He was prosecuted for being a pot courier, pawning a stolen bike, and finally robbing someone with a hammer. In prison, he was assaulted by the Haitian-American gang known as Zopound and associated with the Unforgiven for protection. As a fully grown adult, he committed a prison stabbing against another Unforgiven member who was wounded in several vital areas but survived, and later told police he would have stabbed Welch first if given the chance. For the stabbing, Welch was given 2 decades in federal prison, a sentence that he has barely begun to serve.
And this is what happens to a lot of the people that once you get involved into some of these prison gangs, the violent prison gangs, man, because that's why I be trying to tell people you can't even be associated with these people unless you're willing to go to the extreme and do the matter of fact, like you have to do this type of stuff to be involved with them. You're not getting into none of these high-ranking prison gangs like the AB, the MA, the BGF, you know what I'm saying, the Texas niggas. I forgot their name, no disrespect, but you know I'm a Cali nigga, so you know, the Texas Syndicate, I think it is, you know what I'm saying? And then these dudes right here from Florida, like the Unforgiven, you can't be involved with these dudes unless you're already like done butchered something on the yard and did your due on the yard. Like, we're not even respecting you. You can't even talk to us unless you done this, bruh. You dig what I'm saying? Amongst other things. But, you know, that's why a lot of people, like, you know, when these people, they be saying that they're affiliated with these certain institutions and these certain people, you got to understand the type of person that you're talking to at that point in time. This is a person that will go to the extreme, and you have to go to the extreme to be affiliated with these guys. You just, it's only a chosen few. They're not letting everybody in.
New members are expected to study extremist white supremacist ideology and to undergo a probationary period of several months to a year. When deemed acceptable to join the Unforgiven, the prospect must undergo a bloodletting to symbolize the shedding of old blood to join a new family, to accept the following motto, known as the 21 words. Quote, "As brothers forgiven not by society, embrace Aryan culture, knowledge, and strength. Die proud under that swastika shroud, remaining forever unforgiven." The Unforgiven also goes by the 21-2-12 numerical code.
Man, 21 through 12, bro. Fuck who don't like it. In your mouth when you eat chicken ass, bitch.
Anyway, I'm unforgiven to the motherfucking toe tag to the bust out. 21-2-12, you heard me? UFFU. I'm forgiven forever, fuck you, you know what I'm saying?
The Florida boys is different.
In keeping with this theme, members throw up a 21 hand sign. We've also noticed that from our own review of writings, videotapes, and transcripts of conversations that Unforgiven members often colloquially refer to one another as cracker. Members are prohibited from drug use, and those who do use drugs
They
are
call each
supposed
other
to fess
cracker
up
like we call
and
each
seek
other
help.
nigga.
The organizational structure is twofold, with a president of prisons and another of the free world, and a military-like ranking system that includes lieutenants, soldiers, and sergeants, but also couriers, treasurers, sociologists, and procurement coordinators. Before receiving an organization patch, meaning a tattoo of an iron cross intertwined with a swastika, an Unforgiven member must commit, quote, an extreme act of violence against someone
That's
who has
for sure.
committed a crime against the white race,
And don't
or
get
is
caught
a, quote,
with
racial
that tattoo
adversary.
on, and you ain't done it.
The tattoo can only be given to a member in a specific area, a vital sign on the upper half of their bodies, to both symbolize their fervent loyalty to the organization, as well as to serve as a reminder of just how painful it would be to have such a tattoo burned off or covered in the event that a member betrays the gang. Members are also given a gang pseudonym that they aren't supposed to share with folks
Shrek.
outside of the organization. All of this information we've just
One of them
recounted
niggas was
has
named
come
Shrek.
directly from copies of the Unforgiven Constitution and other literature seized during raids of cells, compounds, and members' homes. While these documents claim to have a rigid system of standards for new and established members, the testimony of former members suggests that this isn't always the case. A former Unforgiven member, named James Maypoles, testified in a federal trial that he was required to study teachings of a neo-Nazi philosopher named David Lane, but, quote, I didn't really believe in a lot of that stuff, yet was allowed to join anyway. During the relevant time periods here, the man in charge of the Unforgiven's prison branch was a lifer named Debo. His real name is
Damn.
John Barker III, and in the early 2000s, he and his brother, John Barker II,
No, I'm not gonna lie. That was the white Debo. Y'all seen him?
were convicted and sentenced for home invasion robbery and murder of a North Fort Myers contractor named Michael Lavolsi,
Got him.
who was beaten, robbed, and hogtied inside of his residence. Debo allegedly attempted to sneak his brother a handcuff key during the sentencing hearing in what
That is
police
Debo.
assumed was an escape attempt. Almost all of the members we've researched for this video joined the Unforgiven when they were in jail or prison. And that leads us to the most famous alleged member of the Unforgiven, who may not actually be a member at all. His name is Wade Wilson. And he's everything
definitely
a
a
true
member. I don't care
crime-obsessed
what you're talking
public
about.
could ever hope for. Wilson is a murderer who carried out 2 brutal, premeditated, and sadistic killings within a 24-hour span, later bragging that he lured both women to their deaths through his charm. He has the same name as the comic book character Deadpool, and facial tattoos that many have compared to the Joker. Wilson blamed his crimes on accidental drug ingestion, claiming he must have taken bath salts or synthetic marijuana disguised as cocaine. But if you look at his case, there are pretty clear indications that he is a sadist. Wilson's sad story starts at a Cape Coral nightclub called Buddha, where he met Christine Melton and her best friend, Stephanie Johnson, introducing himself as JR. He seemed charming and friendly, and eventually the 2 women, Wilson and a man named Jason Shepard, all headed to Shepard's home where Melton and Wilson had consensual sex. What no one knew was that Wilson had left his girlfriend at the club and stolen her car for the 4 to use in the process. The following morning, Wilson sprung into action, offering Melton a ride to get her alone before killing her in her home. While driving home from the scene, he was stopped for directions by a second woman named Diane Ruiz, convinced her to get in his car, then took her to a secluded area and ran her over repeatedly after knocking her unconscious.
What? I'm not gonna lie. Ran her over repeatedly after knocking her unconscious. So he got into it with old girl, hopped up out the whip, boo bopped up, beep bop, beep bop, bop. Hopped in his whip and then just ran her over like a movie scene.
Wilson called his father for help, who played along with his son's pleas, but actually ended up calling the authorities and helping them arrest him. The crimes have generated a strange fascination, with TikTokers and news media following every small development.
Man. Hey, I don't know what's going on with them dads in Florida telling on their kids, but
with great concern. And Jelly Roll's wife even recently revealing that she tried to get Wilson a Netflix show. Wilson has been convicted and sentenced to death. But while his case was pending, news media coast to coast wrote detailed reports about his status as a member of the Unforgiven, claiming that police had confirmed his affiliation with the notorious white supremacist gang. In reality, all of this appears to be based on a single sentence from one police report that was made public after Wilson was implicated in a failed escape attempt from Lee County Jail. The report says that a jailhouse snitch told authorities Wilson and another inmate were planning to break out of jail and to catch a ride to Fort Myers, and that, quote, the 2 are related through affiliation with the Unforgiven. Another indicator is that some of the tattoos Wilson received in jail after his arrest are symbols commonly used by white supremacist prison gangs and those who associate with them. There's some varying possibilities here. One is that the police included this line in a public report because they have other records of Wilson joining the Unforgiven in jail. But in a jail like Lee County, it is likely that all of the white inmates outside of protective custody are affiliated on some level with the Unforgiven. Yep. Even if the, quote, affiliation simply means that hanging out in the same location at an exercise yard or chow hall. Furthermore, Wilson murdering 2 women, including a white lady with blonde hair, goes directly against what the Unforgiven professes as its core values, even though it wouldn't be the first time that a prison gang turned a blind eye to a red flag and allowed someone with a questionable past to join. In short, it's hard to draw a definitive conclusion as to whether Wilson's really a member, or simply someone who hangs around these guys in a jail setting. Outside of prison, the Unforgiven operates somewhere between a militia and an extremist political club, with members who stockpile weapons, spread propaganda, and sell merchandise as both a form of income and recruitment. In 2019, their president on the outside was a man named Darren Terranova. But a lot of people within the Unforgiven were not happy with his leadership. They viewed Terranova as being too soft and too tolerant of members who strayed from the Unforgiven's code of conduct, and some believed the organization was suffering as a whole. Their solution was to replace Terranova with this guy, Maverick Marr, also known as Saxon. He took over the Unforgiven with a directive to weed out members in bad standing and clean house. Under Marr's tenure, Florida was divided into sectors, allowing lieutenants to micromanage their areas more effectively. And he directed members to use the messaging app Marco Polo to send video communications to one another, with the important caveat that they not say anything they wouldn't say to a cop. Unfortunately for the Unforgiven, this caveat was thrown to the wayside by many, and the ATF was able to get its hands on many of these Marco Polo videos with predictable results. The man seen here is Joshua Fisher, aka Hammer. He was something of a unicorn in the Unforgiven due to his complete lack of a criminal record in the late 2010s.
Big white boy right there.
This made him a particularly valuable member. And prosecutors say this group, quote,
he with the shit
sought
too.
to have him as a political mouthpiece and invested in his image as a future candidate for public office, including possibly the mayor of Brooksville, Florida. Of course, there was a downside to being a man with a clean record amongst hardened convicts.
I could see it in his eyes.
Many in the Unforgiven believed Fisher had a chip on his shoulder due to him never having gone to prison and would jump at the first chance to be violent. During a Black Lives Matter rally in Hernando County, Fisher allegedly told Unforgiven members to, quote, arm up, and chased protesters with a machete through the streets.
Deputies say he pulled out a machete after trying to start a fight.
In another instance, he was part of a wrecking crew that entered an Unforgiven member's home, sliced his neck for using drugs, smashed his face with the butt of a shotgun, and left after making a wisecrack that the attack was, quote, from your neighborhood white supremacists. Marr began to keep a, quote, book of life, essentially a roster that made it easier to keep track of members in good and bad standing and how to handle them. For many within the Unforgiven, this was the beginning of the end of their membership. Marr formed hit squads to eliminate weak blood, but they showed some compassion. Rather than murdering bad members, they would simply beat them to a pulp, cover their tattoos, and sometimes replace the Unforgiven symbol with the word void and make their excommunication official. Examples of this included a man named Coke Lawson, who was accused of sexually harassing an Unforgiven prospect's wife. He was assaulted, urinated on, and his tattoos were marked out and replaced with scrawlings that made it clear he was no longer a part of the Unforgiven. Unlike many who had received the same fate, though, Lawson's excommunication allegedly came on Marr's orders alone, rather than through the typical protocol, which was to put an excommunication to a vote. Such a vote occurred with another man named Troy Bailey, who was in bad standing for giving his girlfriend an Unforgiven patch when she'd been labeled a police informant. She also had a baby with a black man. Didn't exactly make Bailey too popular within the Unforgiven. But several ex-members who turned snitch would later tell the ATF that the group planned to not just excommunicate Bailey, but there were some who wanted to kill him. But the ATF dropped the hammer.
You out of here. You embarrassing us? And now your old lady done went around and laid down with a black. You out of here.
Hammer on this group before anything happened to Bailey, charging 15 people to include Marr, Joshua Hammer Fisher, Brandon Scumbag Welch, and other members with nicknames like Stretch, Shrek, and Pretty Boy. As Brandon Welch wrote in the previously mentioned love letter, only 4 of those charged took their case to trial. 8 turned into cooperators, and the remainder accepted guilty pleas and prison sentences that came with it. Those 4 included Maverick Marr, who took the stand in his own defense after listening to several former members testify against him. Marr painted a very different picture of the Unforgiven from what media, the ATF, and federal prosecutors had described. He said the organization had 2,500 members of varying religious, political, and even ethnic backgrounds, including members who were mixed race and those who openly rejected a neo-Nazi philosophy,
I don't believe
yet
that.
were still accepted by the group. Quote, "Do we have white supremacists? Absolutely. Do we have racists? Absolutely. Do we have people that are very much not either of those things? Yes, absolutely factual."
I don't
Another
believe
thing
it.
Marr claimed was that part of his takeover of the Unforgiven included a push to make the group, quote, 100% legal, including
Stop it.
an absolute prohibition on robberies, extortion, and drug sales. As for the assault on Coke Lawson, Marr claimed it was entirely Joshua Fisher's fault, explaining that Fisher was, quote, a very problematic character. Whether the jury believed Marr's testimony is unclear, but they did find him and his 3 co-defendants liable for the various assaults, and a judge sentenced them to lengthy federal prison terms. As for Tyndall Williams, the man we started this episode with, he came up in a violent crime investigation in 2011, just 8 years after being sentenced to life. This time, authorities called him a leader of the Unforgiven in Tomoka Correctional Institution, who had organized and helped carry out an attack against a prison snitch. The victim was targeted for telling police about Unforgiven contraband rings in the facility, and his identity was the biggest irony of them all. He was Esteban Quintanal, a man who had murdered Hialeah police officer Pedro Antonio Canas in 1992 during a domestic violence call. Tyndall Williams and the other 4 men waited for Quintanal to shower during mealtime. Then, 3 of them pounced on him while the other 2 kept watch. He was rushed to an off-site hospital and barely survived the stabbing. The recent Unforgiven prosecution, while technically a success, has done little to curb the gang's activity. It still maintains a strong presence throughout the state of Florida, with the potential to go even further. As the gang's profile is raised by its connection to Wade Wilson,
Florida white
and
boys
as
is
many more
different.
members end up in federal prison through the DOJ's ongoing efforts to go after the gang, it is likely that the Unforgiven will continue to spread.
Y'all have remember anything about this, but I thought this was the Sunshine State.
Yeah, man. Hey, you already know what this is, man. It's your boy Kano3. This my new podcast I'm finna bust out besides the Unchained, car chases, chaos, and capers. You know what we going over. Let's do it, man. Let's get it, man. Hit that like and subscribe, man. You know you mess with your boy. Hit that like and subscribe, man. Let's rock out.